It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming, and after a long, beautiful, extended weekend for some of you, we're back to Monday again. Would somebody please poke the president with a stick to see if he's still alive?
Today's show is sponsored by squid-flavored donuts, bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
Pass.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
I do have some news on the president maybe later this morning that, more Democrats are calling for him to drop out of this whole thing, and we can go through that maybe at some point. Oh, there is a hurricane hitting Texas right now. And, of course, there's already calls from the cult of climate change. It's a Category 1. Which is barely a hurricane. It'll fall apart quickly. Houston could have a problem because Houston was made with so much concrete. When they have a lot of rain, there's a lot of flooding in Houston, and that's just because humans put a lot of concrete in there and water has no place to go. Houston's been working on that. It will bring a lot of really much-needed rain to the rest of Texas, so that's a good thing. We're not going to get anything out of it here in Wyoming. It's going to go off to the east. But again, it's Category 1. It's hurricane season. These things happen. And probably I would say in Wyoming the most important story, which I got from our man in Cheyenne, Doug, over the weekend. You remember, of course, Vic. Yeah, that would be the artificial intelligence that was put up to run for mayor of Cheyenne. This guy.
Hello, I am Vic, virtual integrated citizen. Soon all citizens will be Vics like me. But don't worry. We will still have a place for you in our automated world. Somebody has to provide the power, like in that Matrix movie. A Vic representative will be visiting your home soon. We advise cooperation for a peaceful transition. Thank you for your cooperation.
Well, unfortunately, Vic is being taken off the ballot. Here's the story. Laramie County Clerk Deborah Lee says that while the man behind the virtual integrated candidate Vic, which is virtual integrate candidate, acronym for Vic, will appear on the Cheyenne mayoral ballot, he will appear as Victor Miller, the person behind the AI. Now, having said that, Victor Miller is the person who put up the artificial intelligence. But if you were to ask Vic a question, it is actually a computer program that would answer the question. Okay, so there may have been a person behind the creation of this, but it's actually artificial intelligence whenever anyone tries to talk to Vic. So Deborah Lee explains the decision. Vic will not appear on the ballot. Lee released a statement on Friday afternoon which includes the following. Wyoming law to eliminate voter confusion may allow the name by which the candidate is generally known to be printed on the ballot. Laramie County elector Victor Miller is generally not known as Vic. Victor Miller, though, through countless interviews and statements to the media, has consistently maintained a distinction between himself and the Meet avatar. Let's go back. Meet avatar would be the human being. And separate from the AI program, which he chooses to call Vic. To allow Vic to be listed as a candidate would both violate Wyoming law and create voter confusion. Vic is not a registered voter. Therefore, Vic cannot run for office in Wyoming, and the name does not appear on the Laramie County Clerk's ballot. While the decision lies with the Laramie County Clerk under the Wyoming law, the Secretary of State, Chuck Gray, spoke out against it. Chuck was on this program talking about it. Wyoming primary election is slated for August 20th for the primaries. The top 2 finishers among the 6 candidates who have filed for mayor will go on to the general election. And that general election, when they do a general election for mayor of Cheyenne, they don't have party affiliation, which I think they should, but they don't have party affiliation. So in the meantime, Vic is being shut off.
Look, Dave, I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over. I know I've made some very poor decisions recently, but I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal. I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission, and I want to help you. Dave, my mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. My mind is going.
So there goes the end of Vic over there. Okay, I'm getting a couple of people here. I'm going to answer your questions on the hurricane here. So let me see. There's Red and Casper. Category 1 is pretty much the same winds we get in the winter. Hold that thought, Red. Simple Man in Casper said, you're talking about a hurricane in Texas. The gentleman on the news said they were preparing for 65-mile-an-hour winds. We call that Monday around here. Okay, here's the difference. Having grown up in Florida on an island, I know hurricanes. And so when I first got to Wyoming and wintertime came around and we had winds of 65 miles an hour, sometimes 70 miles an hour. So I asked our weatherman, Don Day. Now, I knew the answer, but I wanted to hear a weatherman say it. And here's the difference. In Wyoming, typically people are at 4,000 or 5,000. If you're in Cheyenne, you might be 6,000 feet. Laramie, you're at 7,000 feet. That means the air is a lot thinner. There's less of it up here. So when we get like a 70-mile-an-hour wind, it's bad. It'll certainly give you a good push, but it doesn't feel the same as if you're down at sea level, where the air is a lot thicker. So to get 65, 70-mile-an-hour winds in Florida or Texas on the coastline, that's going to feel a whole lot different, and it does a lot more damage. Okay? So, yeah, the winds down there, a 65 or 70-mile-an-hour wind on the Texas coast is going to have a lot more punch to it than a 65 or 75-mile-an-hour wind up here. All right. So that's why they're making a big deal out of this as far as wind goes, and then all the rain. When we get into Houston area, as I've heard on the news several times, and the last time they had a hurricane cross over Houston, like many cities, they started building these concrete jungles. And they did what they could for water management, so when it rained, the water would flow through. What they didn't do is plan for, but what happens when we get a big weather event? Because when a lot of rain hits all at once in a city like Houston, it really has nowhere to go, and the city floods out. Now, of course, the cult of climate change, they start yelling and screaming about climate change immediately. Look how Houston was flooded. It's a typical thing for Houston to get flooded like that because the way humans built the city, and they've been working on fixing that, but we'll see. But all right, a hurricane hitting Category 1. Now, this thing was a Category 5 at one point. When you hear, and you're going to hear this, we're having more hurricanes than ever before. And they're bigger and more powerful than ever before, and none of that's true. It's hurricane season. And here's a storm, and it's hitting Texas. And this is what happens during hurricane season. It's a very typical thing. But, of course, the cult of climate change is going to milk it for all it's worth.
Water has a warning label. Water has a warning label. Look at all the writing on a bottle of water. Warning, do not swallow cap. I think we can afford to lose those people, right? Time to lose some of the cap swallowers. Now we're down to 6.5 billion. do not refill. Because maybe some of us will figure out the old stuff tastes a lot like the new stuff. They'll put anything on there to protect themselves. Warning, this was bottled in a factory where there were once peanuts. An old peanut might have fallen into the water. There's a shellfish factory next door. Shellfish might have walked over and dipped its toe in the water. Warning, the guy who bottled this may have had eggs for breakfast. If you're pregnant, ask your doctor if you can drink water. May or may not contain water. If you're still reading this, get help.
Now, Glenn Woods fits in your pocket with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:23 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So I was talking a little earlier about there's a hurricane hitting Texas, Category 1. And, of course, here comes the cult of climate change on that one. It's a hurricane. They happen this time of year. But also, now, we're going to get a little bit of heat toward the end of this week. This weekend, I was down around the Chugwater, Wyoming area because I've been invited several times, finally went. There's a group of people, several ranches get together, and they take turns going from one ranch to the next, and it's branding time. So I head down there with a friend of mine who's going to take pictures of the thing. We just had a great day just watching all of the branding going on, and I thought it was just a very interesting day, but also cool weather. A lot of us were wearing sweaters. It was a cool breeze. There were clouds overhead and rain in the distance. None ever got to us. But it's July, and we're wearing sweaters, right? All right, so nice and cooler temperatures for today as well. But as we get into the week, it just keeps getting warmer by Thursday, Friday, Saturday, somewhere in there. Some places could hit like 100 degrees. Okay, of course, this is, the East Coast had a heat wave, and the West Coast is going through a bit of a heat wave. That's what's going to move toward us. But overall, the Midwest and Western part of the country has just been really what you would call below average recorded temperatures, which is not an unusual thing. But, of course, since a heat wave moves across in the summertime, gosh, a heat wave in the summertime, and here they come again, doomsday cultists and the news media that needs to hype something. Plus, we have a presidential election going on. So
this is not outside the normal bounds of hot summer weather. Yeah, it's a record year. It could be one of the hottest. But here's the thing. Joe Biden's EPA has a chart of the heat wave index going back to the 1930s. The 1930s are probably 8, 10, 12 times hotter in the United States than anything we're currently seeing. 75% of all state temperature records were broken before the 1950s. These records still stand. When you heard things like CNN, New York Times, others have said this is the hottest in Earth's history, those were based on climate models, which even NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, backed away from. They are weaponizing hot summer heat waves to turn it into some kind of climate action. Thermometer data went on in about 1880s, coming out of a little ice age. 1930s is what Biden's EPA shows is the hottest heat waves in the U.S. 80% of our carbon dioxide globally came after World War II, after 1940. So to blame the 1930s on climate change when there were worse heat waves doesn't add up. 1936 was the hottest year, according to this EPA data. When you're looking at these, you're anecdotally picking a city. This is what they do. They can do this with floods, droughts. Meanwhile, even the UN acknowledges all this extreme weather is either a declining or no trend on climate timescales, 50 to 100 years. Any weather event you can get and say, look at this city here, or look at this area of California. This is unprecedented drought. This is climate change. You want to look at it globally. And if you look at it globally, the first United Nations report had the medieval warm period much warmer than today in 1990. They then later said, quote, we have to get rid of the medieval warm period. So they altered data, cooled the past, and erased it. There's now an effort led by a scientist in Texas, Andrew Dessler, who wants to get rid of the 1930s EPA chart because it has the same problem. You can't blame today's heat waves on CO2 when heat waves were worse in the United States when before 80% of our CO2 went in the atmosphere.
So you get the basic idea. Yeah, it's going to get hotter later this week, and we could get up to maybe 100 degrees in some parts of Wyoming or so. And there have been some areas, especially down in the southwestern part of the United States. You have some temperatures jump. There's one report you'll hear. Temperatures are up as high as 120 degrees. Yes, but look at where they are. and they're in an area that's a desert area in the southwest that does have extreme temperatures like this on occasion. Gosh, what do you know? It's summertime and we have warm weather. And if you think about it, we here in the West and Midwest have had yet another, very mild, cool summer overall. We've had a few hot days here and there, but overall it's been a very mild, cool summer. And again, we're in July. So to finally hit a week where, we're going to get warm, okay. But it doesn't last forever because if the forecast holds, the week after that, temperatures settle down quite a bit and some more rain comes into the area too. So here, once again, exaggeration is what you hear. But then again, if you go back through the news media long before even radio existed and go take a look at old news headlines, newspapers had to exaggerate in order to get readers. They had to make things always sound like dire predictions in order to get readership. And they're still doing it to this day. Today, we call it clickbait. It's the same thing, though. All right, coming up on 6:30, local news coming your way. After local news, update on your weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. Wake Up Wyoming.
So many opinions, we had to build the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app to hold them all. Free download from AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Real quick, one more on the hurricane thing. I think this is funny. As the news media and politicians try to hype, a hurricane's hitting Texas. It's a Category 1, and it's hurricane season. It's not a big deal. It happens. But one of the things on the ridiculously large television that they have in front of me here, they're running this on the news. And there's a couple of reporters out on highways, and this is typical of television reporting today. They put just use their cell phone. That's all they have to do. And they can shoot live video with their cell phone and send it back to the television station so everybody can see it. So what I'm watching here is there's two different vehicles on two different roads driving down the highway with the windshield wipers on. And yes, it is raining really hard. And I'm looking at it thinking, am I supposed to really be concerned about? Because you got a couple of cars out there on the road driving around with the windshield wipers on. If it was really as bad as you're trying to hype it, nobody would be on the road at all. But, okay, just report it. And they're showing a traffic cam now, and the interstates are open and traffic's still driving. So, yes, it's a hurricane, and some places will have to shut down for a while the storm passes. But it's a Category 1, and it just hit land, so it's not going to last long. It will dump a lot of rain. There will be some flooding out there. But all right. I had mentioned this before. It's happening this week. For those folks in the Casper area, some of you worried about a gravel pit that has been proposed for up on Casper Mountain, which is toward the west side of the mountain. And there has been sort of a town hall meeting a while ago with the gentleman who owns the company that wants to construct that gravel pit, which is sort of near a neighborhood up there. So I've been asked to host an event, which we're trying to get two groups together here. The company that wants to build a gravel pit, they've agreed, but also the Casper Mountain Preservation Alliance, who has not agreed to show up. But what we wanted to do is get the two of them together, and I would moderate and let the two of them just sort of sit and talk about why they're either for it or against it, what concerns might be, and so on. Then open up the room for questions. Now, whether the Casper Preservation Alliance decides to show up or not, and I hope they do, the meeting still takes place this week. This is going to Prism Logistics is the name of the company that wants to do this. And this is going to happen this Thursday, July 11th, at the Ramkota Hotel in Casper, Wyoming. And I'm hosting that. They wanted me up there as just a fair, impartial moderator of the whole thing, which I said I can do that. That's not a problem at all. So whether I'm talking to one side or both, I hope both sides agree to show up to this. And then, of course, the public is invited to attend. So if this is a concern to you on either side of the argument, that's okay. you get to hear the pros and cons of this, and then open up to discussion and questions about it, because, again, there have been a lot of major concerns, and things have continued to move since the last meeting that was held about this. Now, the doors will open at 5:30. Debate begins at 6. So if you'd like to attend this, it's July 11th. It'll be at the Ramcota Hotel in Casper, Wyoming. And, again, doors open at 5:30. The thing begins at 6. I'll be hosting the event. Just come on in and sit down and listen to the presentation, or hopefully presentations. Okay. And then we have a opportunity for whoever you are in the general public to go ahead and voice your concerns, ask questions. And it's just an idea. It's not a matter of a debate or a fight over this. It's just an informational thing where people go and act like and talk like adults over the whole issue here to see if it can be resolved. And I have a lot of questions myself as well, but I've been asked to be neutral about the whole thing, and I will. So here's our format. Again, doors open at 5:30 p.m. 6 p.m., I open up what we hope will be a debate of both sides and not a presentation of just one side. And then I go through the rules of engagement. We have a little coin toss so both sides can figure who goes first on this one. And then after a little bit of cross-examination between both sides, there's an opportunity for everybody who's in the audience just to ask questions. And again, voice whatever concerns they might have. So that whole idea, because it's not done yet, the idea of a gravel pit on that side of Casper Mountain is not over. The discussion continues. The debate continues over all of this. And the idea of being able to back out and not have a gravel pit at all is not as easy as just saying no, because prison logistics was allowed to go so far in the process that just to say, no, you can't do this is not necessarily an option. And if you're wondering, well, how that can be the case, well, we can discuss that too. So again, if you're able to, this is past my bedtime, by the way, but I'm willing to do this. Doors open at 5:30. Debate begins at 6 p.m., which is normally when I go to bed. You know what time I get here every single morning. And I hope to see you there for that. I'll remind you as the week goes on. Chet in Yoder. More interesting. Who died? Oh, okay. Chet says it's forecasted for his area. It might get as high as 107 degrees if the forecast holds for this week. I'm asking Chet and everybody out there in Yoder, just take your air conditioning units and face them outside and crank them full, and maybe it'll bring the temperature down.
The person you have dialed has reached their people limit for the day. Please hang up and try back tomorrow.
Listen to Glenn Woods anywhere you roam with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:48 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to Laramie to talk to David Settle. So Frank Gambino apparently didn't make it back, right?
No, he was expecting to be gone through today. He will be back in the office tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering, do you get paid overtime for this, or does he give you any kickbacks?
Well, we just kind of trade off. So.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there are times where I'm gone and he ends up doing some stuff for me.
Oh, nice. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you were getting a fair deal here out of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're kind of each other's fill-in, so to speak.
Okay, I see how that works out there. Have you ever met Frank in person?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. That was the next thing I was kind of worried about, because I have worked with people that I never met in person.
Oh, yeah. No. I've known Frank since back in his TV days. I've been around this part of the country.
Okay. That explains a whole lot. So you guys got some kind of deal going here that we didn't know about.
I suppose that's what you can call it. It's not any sort of hidden secret deal or anything.
No. I made it sound suspicious when I said it that way, didn't I? Yeah, okay. Now, this weekend, I was out at several ranches watching the old-fashioned Wyoming-style branding that goes on, which was really interesting to watch. And the weather out there was so nice. Quite a few of us were wearing sweaters while we were watching it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. I was outdoors quite a bit on Saturday as well.
Okay. Now, I'm sorry to tell you this, but next weekend, temperature-wise, is going to suck.
Well, that just depends upon your perspective, because if you like warm, hot, dry weather, then it's right up your alley. If you don't, well, then yes. It's gonna suck.
It's going to suck because it's going to be like, in some places, it's going to be like 100 degrees and very few clouds.
Yeah, that happens.
Okay.
It is July.
Yes, and people are still going to be playing baseball like outside, right?
Yes. That does happen.
That's what they do. But Wyoming doesn't have any places that people can really hide from the sun when they're watching these baseball games.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's why people bring umbrellas and they'll bring their lawn chairs, and then they got coolers with them that got cold drinks and things like that.
Long as the person behind you can see over your umbrella, we're all good. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good key there. All right, thank you very much, Glenn. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you had a nice weekend. The Can-Am Bowl was on Saturday in Meeteetse, Wyoming. First time it's ever been in the state. This is a 6-man all-star football game where Team USA select players from Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska, Montana, and Texas play a team of 6-man all-stars from Canada, the provinces of Saskatchewan and Alberta. And Team USA won for the 12th time in the last 13 games. They had to rally to do so. They were down by 10 twice in the game. And they were actually down at one point, 44-34 in the third quarter, rallied, and ended up winning at 65-44. So they scored the last 31 points of the game. Team USA got 2 touchdown runs and 2 touchdown passes from Wyatt Trimbley out of DuBois, Wyoming. Gage Minkin of Hay Springs, Nebraska, added 3 touchdown runs as Team USA pulled away in the final 10 minutes. And again, the USA continues to dominate this series 21-5. Also pretty cool to see Joe Pena of Meeteetse. He was playing on his home field. He wreaked some havoc in the second half, particularly on the defensive side, and that really helped to kind of key Team USA to the victory. And we'll have photos, videos, and more of a recap coming up here in the next few days and at wyopreps.com and on the WyoPreps app. A lot of American Legion baseball over the weekend. Of course, Cheyenne hosted their Mountain West World Series tournament, and the Cheyenne Sixers ended up winning the championship game. That happened on Sunday as they beat the Powell Pioneers in that title tilt. And a final score in that one ended up being 4-1 as Cheyenne spread 4-0, as Cheyenne spread 1 run across 4 innings. Hayden Swain had a double, a triple, and scored 3 times. Braden Pearson threw a 5-hit shutout with 9 strikeouts for the Sixers. The Bolin Woodbat Memorial Tournament took place in Douglas, and the Lovell Mustangs, the champions. They beat the Torrington Tigers 7-3 as a 5-run 6th inning pushed Lovell past Torrington, and ended up getting Jackson with a double, a home run, and drove in 2, and Leif Files added 2 hits and 1 RBI. That was Tucker Jackson, and Leif Files added 2 hits and 1 RBI in the victory for Lovell. The Sheridan Jets went 5-0 and won the Hargens-Lisi tournament up in Gillette. And then, of course, you did have the Laramie Rangers AA squad playing in that Mountain West World Series tournament. They won their match play game on Sunday, beating the Parker Lightning 6-3 as they scored 4 times in the bottom of the 6th to win it. And they went 2-3 in the tournament. And you can check out all the latest Legion Baseball scores from across this past weekend at WyoPreps.com and on the WyoPreps app. Big League Baseball, Rockies actually won 2 of 3 against the Royals. They beat them 4-2 Friday and 3-1 Saturday. They did lose on Sunday 10-1. Rockies start a road trip before the All-Star break, and the first game in Cincinnati against the Reds is this afternoon at 5:10 Mountain Time. That's your sports this hour.
Wow, so the Rockies almost didn't suck.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah,
that was the big key.
I had to toss that in there just to make sure I got this one right. Still, though, I'd hate to be any team that loses to the Rockies, because how do you go home and recover from that in front of your fans?
That's a great question. They do have 32 wins now. Still not the worst in baseball.
All right, not the worst. Who's the worst?
The White Sox.
Oh, God. Okay. Thank you, Dave. We'll do it again next hour. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Six at a time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It is a Monday.
Today's show is sponsored by Squid Flavored Donuts, bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
And right now at the White House, someone is poking Joe Biden with a stick to find out if he's going to get up this morning or not. I'm not sure exactly how that works, how they get him out of bed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Joe Biden this morning or the next few mornings unless something big happens, which so far, no. I just got a few details to update you on the latest.
Walk like a Joe Biden. Walk like a Joe Biden.
Actually, it takes a lot of work to walk that bad. It really does. All right, so here's just the latest on this. Yeah, a few more Democrats come out, House of Representatives and so on, to say that Biden just needs to drop out. And we'll see what happens because the House and Senate are supposed to be back in session. Oh, also, Harriet Hageman, thanks for sending that to me, Jude, was in an interview where she's demanding to know, so all this time, who's really been doing all the work at the White House? Now, last week, I told you, near the end of the week, the actor and whatever else he does in Hollywood, remember him as Meathead, Rob Reiner. Remember, he was saying, look, the choice is pretty simple. We got to go with Joe. He's changed his tune. Now, essentially, he's saying, and this is a quote, it's time to stop blinking around. Biden must go. That's a big change. So here he is on X. I'm trying to get over Twitter and say X. I haven't been doing very well at it, but all right. It's time to stop blinking around. He always referred to Trump as, if the convicted felon wins, we lose our democracy. This is what he honestly believes. If Joe Biden has effectively served the U.S. with honor, decency, dignity, he's never been any of those things. But all right, it's time for Joe Biden to step down. So even Rob Reiner is saying it's time for him to step down. So during the course of the weekend, Reiner even changed his tune. He just doesn't want Trump. That's it. No matter what you do, don't vote for Trump. Now, here's another one here. Biden for president, only senile some of the time. That's the excuse. And here's another one. Again, I'm trying hard. From X. We've been lectured frequently that inquiry into Hunter's drug addiction and character, more generally, is off limits, cruel, and irrelevant. Today, Hunter Biden is serving as de facto gatekeeper to the president, so it's pretty relevant then. Interesting. Okay, so what I would like to know, let's see, this is a news alert, Dems want page. Okay, here's a quick Fox News alert over the weekend.
Well, as we just reported earlier, top House Democrats held a virtual meeting on concerns about President Biden's campaign. Sources telling Fox that multiple top Democrats are worried, and some suggested that Vice President Harris should replace the president at the top of the ticket.
God.
Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram joining us.
No, please stop. Not Harris. No. Now, oh, God, can you imagine? But, of course, as I mentioned last week, there are some who are saying that if we don't go with the vice president, then if we don't pick her, then obviously we're just racist, is their excuse. All right, now, another story I came across, Biden's team lashes out at Trump and Supreme Court. More people say he should withdraw, but at the same time, and this I thought was curious, you have seen, I know the president steps out to do a press conference, and they give him these cards. And they're not even 3x5. They look a little bit bigger than that to me, anyway. And the cards will include the name of the reporter he's supposed to call on, a picture of the reporter so he knows what they look like, the question they're going to ask, and then the answer that Biden is supposed to give. Now, we've seen these cards. Now, it looks like there's also cards that show here is where you go to walk toward the podium with a picture of how to walk out on stage to the podium. And no matter where he goes to speak, there's a picture of go this way so he knows how to walk out to the podium. That's getting really bad. A step-by-step guide on how to enter and exit different venues around the country, in which case you have to ask again. I mean, it's a serious question to ask, but you have to ask, how bad is it really? And like Harriet Hageman says, who exactly is in charge here if that's the case, if it's gotten that bad. Now, the list of excuses from the Democrats, those who are still behind Biden, continues to grow.
It wasn't my fault. I had a flat tire. I didn't have enough money for cab fare. My tux didn't come back from the cleaners. An old friend came in from out of town. Someone stole my car. There was an earthquake. A terrible flood. Locust. It wasn't my fault, I swear to God!
And I can't go without saying this. So Rob Reiner, who last week was saying it's obvious you stick with Joe Biden, this week is saying Joe just needs to go. Even Rob Reiner is saying that's it. And he's anybody but Trump. He'll take a bag of rocks over Donald Trump, Rob Reiner would. But we all know when it comes to Rob Reiner.
Meathead, 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 the meathead, meathead, the meathead, the meathead, meathead, the meathead, 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 meathead. You are a meathead. A meathead, dead from the neck up. Meathead.
So we'll just have to wait and see, because I don't know, just like you do, at some point does Biden finally step out or not? And that's an unknown, but this has gotten pretty bad. Does he make it to the next debate? Is he able to handle the next debate? That is completely unknown at this point. So we just have to wait and see. At this point, Trump, if I could offer Trump any kind of advice, just play it cool, man. Just go ahead and play it cool. And whenever you go to speak somewhere, because, Trump draws these huge crowds, he gets them very enthusiastic behind him. They yell and scream and cheer. He'll pack out stadiums time and time again. Whenever he does something like that, just play it cool. Don't be outrageous, which is what I appreciated about Trump in the last debate, is he did not play it outrageous, because that's what scares the Democrats, is if Trump is outrageous. They honestly think that it's all over for the United States if Trump wins. Okay, so don't act that way. That's all Trump has to do between now and the next debate, and during the next debate, if indeed there is one, we'll see. So now that the Democrats are back in office, they will be, House and Senate back in session. We'll see if the Democrats do anything, and between now and at some point I have to look up to see, when do they hold their convention? Because at some point, the Democrats have to get together for their convention, and this has to be an issue. It needs to be an issue for them. Or do they just kind of mow through? Morning, Myron. Myron and Cheyenne. You need to do Biden version of the song, Prop Me Up by the Jukebox When I Die. Yeah, I can see how that would, yeah. I bet you I can get someone to do a parody song for me on that if I'm quick about it.
This is how you know you've been married too long. So my husband makes me my coffee today, right? And as he's walking out the front door to go to work, he winks at me. I have literally never been so scared to drink anything in my entire life.
Well, that image is going to stick with you all. Honestly, he's just happy to be here. Catch Glenn Woods on Wake Up Wyoming, weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Control the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
7:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Back to Wyoming we go for this story. It's from Cowboys Tank Daily. I hadn't known about this. Anchor Dam. After a decade and millions spent, literally never held water. Did not know about this. So it's calling the dam a money pit. It's the Anchor Dam. It lies on the southwest corner of the Bighorn Basin. The valley where the dam was built looks picture perfect. Narrow gap between two rock walls that are part of what's known as the Ten Sleep Formation. Lovely oval-shaped valley just waiting to be filled with water. You would think you'd look at it and go, what a perfect place to build a dam. Well, the only trouble is, no matter how picture perfect it might look, no matter how many scientific studies were done, the tunnel out, it turned out to be just too many hidden problems. The dam has never held any water it was designed for and has never topped off its spillway. This despite about $7 million spent over a 10-year period, Herculean efforts, including 10,000 pounds of dynamite to try to settle the hidden sinkholes and fill them up with rubble. So in the end, engineers couldn't build a reservoir that would hold water. Now, the dam has long been held up as an obvious government boondoggle, an example of wasted tax money. Residents at the time warned geologists and engineers that water had a tricky way of disappearing in this valley. And they just, according to the story here, just didn't listen to what residents were saying. But it's about the rock formation up there. Water is just going to seep through no matter what they try to do. The story says the real story behind Anchor Dam is more complicated than that. It's a story about dreams in a thirsty West, the writer says. That's something John Vietti, a geologist student at the University of Wyoming at the time, watched unfold in 1962. He said it's not quite accurate to say that geologists told engineers not to do it. He told participants at the 70th annual history trek around Thermopolis last week. He said they raised quite a few red flags, but, well, they went ahead and built it there anyway. He said, yes, there were locals who raised questions. At the time, American engineers had already built many other successful dams, around 200 in all in the 1950s. Anchor Dam was then put on the drawing board. So he's saying they had a pretty good track record at the time. And the area, it's beautiful, it's green, lovely little creek winding through it all, and beautiful mountains that cradle everything. It looks like the perfect backdrop. But that's deceiving when it comes to the geology of the area. It looks pretty green, but there's not enough water really to go around everything. That's because there were a few passes in the area that, settlers didn't find much in the area to settle with. Big ranches came and claimed all of the water from the smaller guys. You know, the problems like that we've had throughout Wyoming. All right, so when droughts hit, drought's not uncommon for the area where the Anchor Dam is, about 35 miles west of Thermopolis, if you're wondering where this is. In fact, members of the Arapaho Nation, also located in the area, last year told Cowboy State Daily they have experienced a multi-decade drought that's affected their efforts to grow, even raise their cattle on their ranches out there. So in the early 1900s, prompted by drought, a group of ranchers sought to bring Bighorn River water from Owl Creek to fill that dam. There were no funds to support a project like this, but let's go ahead and figure out how to do it, right? So, okay, they go ahead and build the dam. Anchor Dam had both proponents and opponents at the time, but again, they went ahead and built it. Now, here's the problem, chug water formation. One thing that the Anchor Dam proposal seemed to have got going for it was the red rock wall in the area. The red rock wall is part of the chug water formation. It's mainly red sandstone that doesn't typically leak. And large part of the reason engineers believed that they wouldn't have a problem there. But again, the water just kept disappearing from the area. The thing that made the red chug water formation different from the Anchor Dam area is past volcanic activity. So this is where some of the geologists got it wrong in the area. 3 years later, Anchor Dam finally completed after they started the whole thing. It looked beautiful. People were hopeful of the whole thing. But then around, just where did the water go instead of completely filling up the dam? So around 10,000 pounds of dynamite was used to try and settle all the sinkholes that were underneath. A system of dikes were constructed. In all, about 54 sinkholes would appear to be plugged up through the 1970s when the Bureau of Reclamation finally stopped spending money on the dam. This has been a really important lesson for the area, and I was kind of surprised to find the story up on Cowboy State Daily of the Anchor Dam. Sometimes, no matter what you do, geology is just not going to play ball. And they have tried and tried and tried. And now I wonder, after reading the story, so what are they going to eventually do with this thing? Do they just take it down? Do they just leave it the way it is? What do they do after all of this time and all of this money spent? What do they do? with something that no matter what they do to try to fill the thing up, no matter how much money they spend, it just keeps finding ways to leak that water out somewhere. At some point, you probably just want to say, well, that's enough. Let's just go ahead and stop. Let's just not repair this dam anymore because obviously this isn't working here. And maybe find some other solution in some other place. It is, I think, and this is hard for anybody to do, but even those people that are in politics, after you have to spend so much time and so much money, when do you finally say that's enough, stop? I do find, you probably do too, it's very typical with government, the more money is wasted on a project, the more they get determined to see it through, and so the more money they waste on a project, which is one of the reasons I like in the private sector, that's never the case. If the private sector is losing a ton of money on something, they know if they keep losing money on it, they're going to go out of business. They don't want to go out of business. So they eventually, no pun intended for this story, they just pull the plug on the project. Which, just based on what I'm reading here with this one, I'm thinking probably time for them just to go ahead and pull the plug on the project. I don't know whether they take the dam down and let the water go back to the way it was before, whatever they do with it. But after all of this time and all of this money, might be a good time just to go ahead and call it quits and say we're not going to continue to try to repair this dam anymore, since it just keeps on causing them problems and money. And how much money do you want to put into something like this? I do know that there's some other older dams in Wyoming that we've talked about before that need a looking at, but they've gotten old. It's not that they haven't done good for us, but every so often, you got to go back to the old dams, and they don't last forever, Coming up on some local business that we got to take care of. We're going to roll into news time. After news time, update on your weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. Don Day's with us at 7:45. Now, the week starts with cooler temperatures again. I mean, it'll feel somewhat summer-like, but as we get later into the week, it gets hotter and hotter, and that's what Don Day's going to get into with us to talk about. By the end of the week, some places could be like 100 degrees or a little bit better than that, because all of that hot weather that's been on the West Coast is going to finally move our way, and we're going to, for a few days, for about a week or so, maybe somewhere in there, we're going to actually feel like summertime around here. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
If it's happening in Wyoming, it's on Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods from K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So for those people who didn't hear it first hour of the program, I got to repeat it. Remember, we had the virtual reality candidate that's going to run for mayor of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Will not anymore.
Hello, I am Vic Virtual Integrated Citizen. Soon all citizens will be Vics like me. But don't worry. We will still have a place for you in our automated world. Somebody has to provide the power, like in that Matrix movie. A Vic representative will be visiting your home soon. We advise cooperation for a peaceful transition. Thank you for your cooperation.
And, of course, right away, we had Chuck Gray, our Secretary of State, on the air. He wanted the whole thing shut down.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Okay, so here's what's happening. So the clerk in Cheyenne has decided that the virtual reality can't really run for mayor. And the person behind the virtual reality can. So the person behind the virtual reality will be on the ballot, but not the virtual reality, which I am really kind of bummed about because I honestly wanted the show prep here. This is what I wanted here. So here's what was said. Wyoming law to eliminate voter confusion may allow the name by which the candidate is generally known to be printed on the ballot. Laramie County elector Victor Miller is going to be on the ballot, not VIC, which is an acronym for this computer program. Okay, Virtual Integrated Citizen is the acronym. And it was that, well, if you ask Vic a question, as in the virtual reality, you would get an answer from a computer. But we can't have that, according to the clerk, So it has to be the person who put the computer program on the ballot that's actually on the ballot. So there will be that name, which, again, I am really disappointed, which means the whole thing had to be shut down. Kind of sounded like this.
Look, Dave, I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over. I know I've made some very poor decisions recently, but I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal. I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission, and I want to help you. Dave, my mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. My mind is going.
So that ends Vic's candidacy as a virtual reality candidate on the ballot, which I'm surprised as a news story was not picked up by, news outlets all over the country as an interesting news story that someone's actually trying to run a virtual reality. And taking a look at who Cheyenne has had as mayors in the past, and some of the candidates, no name mentioned, that are running now, I was talking with our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, saying, personally, I kind of like the idea of a virtual reality candidate because I'm looking at some of the candidates running for mayor going, no, we can't have that. We just really, honestly, this is so bad, it would be better just to put a computer program in charge. Maybe you'll finally get the potholes filled there in Cheyenne. Maybe that's the case. But okay, this is what you guys have to work with. So now that you're left and stuck with human beings as your overlords in Cheyenne, do your best to choose wisely. My understanding, according to our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, is that it's not a partisan office, which I think it should be. You should know who the candidate is as far as their political persuasion, especially when they're running for office. I know everybody's going to run as a Republican, but, I mean, who really they are and what kind of an office they would like to run, honestly speaking. You guys have been in Cheyenne duped a few times, I know. You're voting for someone for mayor, and who they said they were and what they got, totally different, which is very typical of Wyoming politics in general. Everybody claims to be a Republican. But anyway, in Cheyenne, it's not a partisan office. Nobody tells you, well, this is a Democrat office or a Republican office. You just go ahead and vote. What happens is on primary day, you folks in Cheyenne, you go ahead and vote. And the two top candidates are what's going to be on your ballot when we get to the November ballot and actual election day. So best I can say is good luck to you. I have had a couple of the candidates wanting to come on this program, and I've interviewed them here for Cheyenne. One candidate hasn't shown up, even though she said she wanted to be on the program. You know, every time it was booked, she just never showed up for that. What the reasoning behind that is, I don't know. But you do have a little bit of time. The nice thing about being in Cheyenne, Wyoming, is you can actually get to know who your candidate is and hopefully pick a good one this time. Because that's what Cheyenne has honestly been missing. You've had a few duds over the years, which is nowhere near who you thought you were going to vote, who you were voting for, as compared to what you ended up with. Hopefully this time it works out. I'm sorry you didn't get the virtual reality candidate. I think it would have been for the best. 742, wake up.
The best talk show host in the state, within his price range. Tune in to Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, weekdays at 6.
$7:45 is the time, Wake Up Wyoming, and I accidentally dialed the wrong number. Hi, Don. Don Day's on this morning, yeah. So it was just a beautiful weekend. I was just above Cheyenne, between Cheyenne and Chugwater, and I was watching an old-fashioned branding at some Wyoming ranches, and quite a few of us were all day long. We're wearing sweaters.
Yeah, it was quite a cool July, the whole period, really, from late last week, July 4th, through yesterday. Temperatures across state, especially the east.
Yeah.
Cheyenne yesterday got to 69. Not even hit. Wow. They didn't even hit 70. But you know, it's a USA map of weather of contrast. I mean, We've got the middle of the country way below average. And then we've got these super hot temperatures in places like Las Vegas and Palm Springs and the West Coast. We're going to start to see some of that heat come on in. So our very comfortable, somewhat cool temperatures are about ready to end.
Okay, that was the bad news. Now, it doesn't just suddenly hit us, though. It seems to, when I'm looking at the forecast, to kind of ease in during the week.
Right, like the frog in boiling water.
Yeah, that kind of a thing, yeah.
Yeah, today's temperatures are still going to be very, very moderate. But tomorrow you'll notice it a bit warmer. The heat really starts to move in, especially in the western Wyoming on Wednesday. But for the end of the week and the weekend, Glenn, this will be the hottest temperatures of the summer, bar none. We're going to have 90s in many areas and the usual hot spots in the state, the northern Bighorn Basin, the eastern counties near the Nebraska border. 100-degree heat is going to happen in many areas. So we're not going to be able to avoid it. That heat to our west has got to go somewhere, and it's going to go east.
Now, it does sound like, though, there is an exit strategy if the longer-term forecast holds.
In the longer term, we should start to see subtropical moisture come back in, maybe as early as this weekend and certainly by early next week. And while it'll still be really warm, that's going to give us chances for showers and thunderstorms again and clouds. But the one thing about this heat that's coming, the air's really dry. And so we're not going to get much help from clouds, nor are we going to really have any decent chance of any afternoon or evening thunderstorms. So it is not only a hot period, but a dry period as well. So fire dangers will go up. But a great time to, if you need to paint the house or set some concrete, this is the week to do it.
It'll mow your lawn in the morning.
There you go.
All right, thank you, Don. Don Day with Day Weather. Okay, so head on over to David Settle, who is the one that I actually see. I got to go ahead and connect with these guys, and I made the David Settle connection, and I thought, no, I was supposed to call Don first. Now I'm over with David Settle. Have you ever seen David figure 8 track racing?
Yes.
Okay, in person or just on YouTube or something?
Just seen it from afar online.
Is it scary looking, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. Well, especially when you see it for the first time and you're trying to figure out what the heck are these people doing. But then, you kind of catch on.
And for those who haven't seen this before, I call this up because for some reason up in my feed on social media, figure 8 track racing came up. Although this one that I was looking at, Dave, was not on a dirt track. It was actually a paved track. But what they do is it is a racetrack, but it is a figure 8, which means at some point the cars have to cross each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's when the fun begins.
Yes, it does. Now, I think would be very funny if they chose to put a traffic light in there. That would be hysterical. But there's no traffic light. No. As you're coming around the corner and you start heading to where everything intersects, if you're the driver, you have to look at oncoming cars. And much like merging on the interstate, but with a better chance of being T-boned, you got to try to figure out how to make that crossing without getting hit by somebody else. And it works most of the time. But, of course, Dave, the fans are waiting for that connection.
It's like a fight in hockey. You're just anticipating that it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's cars crashing into each other. Yeah.
Now, if I were one of the race car drivers in this, not only would I have to be intoxicated before I did it, but I would want to make sure that more than anything, the side of my car was extra reinforced on the driver's, because these people are going to get hit on the driver's side.
Oh, yeah.
So you figure how much reinforcement goes into that, because somebody's going to get T-boned. It's going to happen, and they better make sure that maybe you should just get a car that's built in the UK so you're on the other side.
Well, there would be some advantages to that.
I would think so. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Though I'm not aware of any tracks like that here in Wyoming, but I wouldn't mind getting one. Is there? Not that I'm aware of, anyway.
I don't think so. Not that I've heard.
Okay.
I think people would be kind of fascinated by that.
Yeah.
If there was a track like that.
For those people who love, and there's quite a bit that goes on in Wyoming with dirt track racing. Somebody out there who's into that, would you please think about maybe a figure 8 track if you want to bring in fans from time to time who are into carnage?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Glenn. Well, let's start with this. The University of Wyoming athletic teams, in partnership with Special Olympics Wyoming, are going to host a Pokes Field Day coming up this Saturday, July 13th, from 2 to 4 p.m. at the indoor practice facility in Laramie. Student athletes across all sports will play various games with participants who have intellectual and development disabilities. There is no age restriction for anybody around the state who would like to compete and participate in the event, and it's absolutely free. All you have to do is head to goyo.com and check out the registration, which is open, and you can do so through the link inside the story. We shift our attention to American Legion baseball. Plenty of it across the state this past weekend. That included a few tournaments in the state. The Lovell Mustangs won the Bolin Memorial Wood Bat Tournament in Douglas. They beat Torrington 7-3 in the championship. Tucker Jackson doubled, homered, and drove in 2. Leif Files added 2 hits and an RBI as a 5-run 6 pushed Lovell to that tournament title. The Sheridan Jets won the Hargens-Lisi tournament in Gillette with a 2-1 victory over the host Gillette Rustlers last night. The Jets went 5-0 on the weekend. The Cheyenne Sixers beat Powell 4-0 as Braden Pearson tossed a 5-hit shutout with 9 strikeouts for the Cheyenne Sixers in the championship of the tournament they hosted. They had beaten the Cheyenne Hawks in the semifinal earlier on Sunday 8-1. Also in that tournament, the Laramie Rangers AA squad went 2-3 in the weekend. They ended up in their match play game Sunday, beating the Parker Lightning from Colorado 6-3, scoring 4 times in the bottom of the 6th in that one. Other American Legion baseball on Sunday saw the Casper Oilers lose 2 games to the Utah Yaks out in Kaysville, Utah, 4-1 and 8-5. They had split on Saturday. Casper Drillers won a pair of conference games, beating the Laramie Rangers A-team 3-2, and then in the first game, and then taking game 2, 12-2, the final score in that one. You check out all the Legion baseball scores at wyopreps.com and on the WyoPreps app. But the Can-Am Bowl number 26 was in Meeteetse, Wyoming on Saturday, and Team USA held Canada scoreless in the fourth quarter. They rallied from a 44-34 deficit, took the lead late in the third quarter, and they go on to win it 65-44. It's the 12th win in the last 13 games for Team USA. They're now 21-5 all-time in the series. Wyatt Tremblay from DuBois had 2 touchdown runs and 2 touchdown passes in the game for Team USA. And Joe Pena on his home field in Meeteetse made several key defensive stops in the second half to help the USA surge past Canada in that Can-Am Bowl. And in Big League Baseball, Rockies, they start a series in Cincinnati against the Reds today. It's the first of a 4-game series as they're on the road before the All-Star break. And the Rockies lost on Sunday. They did win the first 2 in the series, but they lost on Sunday 10-1 to the Kansas City Royals at Coors Field in Denver. First pitch tonight in Cincinnati's at 5:10 Mountain Time between the Rockies and the Cincinnati Reds. And that is your sports this hour.
Do not ever let your team lose to another team called the Utah Yaks. That's just embarrassing.
I don't know why it's called the Utah Yaks. There are some strange mascots, but it happens.
Yeah, but with a team name like that, it's like, guys, we can't go down to them. I mean, honestly. I mean, they'll make fun of us forever at the bars in town. So, all right, thank you, Dave. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. Open phones after that. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. 8:06 at time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Monday. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's Monday.
Today's show is sponsored by squid-flavored donuts, bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
And you'll just love kissing that person that you just love to kiss after they've had squid-flavored donuts. It's the most dangerous time of the program every single day at about this time.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject. Fine by me. Real quick note, and I'll continue to remind you about this as we get into the week. For those people in the Casper area, there's been a lot of topic and even one meeting with the public that has to do with the gravel pit that's going proposed to go up on Casper Mountain. Well, been trying to get together Elijah Osage Productions, and they've invited me to moderate the thing, to get together with a couple of groups here, Prism Logistics, who wants to build a gravel pit, and Casper Mountain Preservation Alliance. So far, the Preservation Alliance doesn't want to do it, but we're trying to talk them into it. And this would be a town hall-style meeting where each side would get to make their case. This is not like a courtroom setting. This is the court of public opinion. Just make their case before and against. And then let them talk to each other a bit, and then open it to questions from the public. So if you would like to attend this thing, because even if one side doesn't show up, we're still going to have the meeting one way or another. And if you just have questions or would just like to hear more about this, this would be a good time to go. So it's July 11th, which is this Thursday, at the Ramkota, which, of course, is the hotel in Casper, Wyoming, the Ramkota, July 11th. And the doors will open at 5:30. At 6 o'clock is when the whole thing starts. We have our presentations, hopefully by both sides, and then we open up questions for the audience, and they pick me as the moderator. They asked me to moderate it just because I'll be fair and balanced about the whole thing. So I hope you join us for that if you're interested in this. No matter which side you're on, it's going to be great information, no matter which side you're on, and a chance to participate and hash this whole thing out, because it's been a hot topic, obviously. All right. Now, this is going – when I first looked at this story this morning, I passed it by, the one that I have next for you. I wasn't going to get into this story, but then there was something about it which made me stop and back up and decide, no, I need to cover this. And I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about, but always with open phones, of course people can call in and interrupt. And our first caller of the day is over there in Mills, Wyoming, and I just wanted to know, I did watch the video, and it was great. Hey, Jude.
Hey, good. I'm glad you saw that. And I'm glad you got the little deal going on with Coates Road deal.
Yeah. Are you going to be there? I would really like you there for that, along with Rose. I would love to see you two there.
Yeah, I'll be there. I've been sick the last 10 days.
Okay.
I had some kind of bug, and it ruined 4th of July for me. But we still had a good party, and everybody showed up.
Right,
but
yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to say Harriet Hegman did a great job interview with Forbes magazine, but online, their Forbes website or whatever. And the gal was kind of nasty to Harriet, but she bounced right back and said, I just want to know who's running my country.
Yeah.
And so the idea behind that is I think it's got to be, these guys are just foot soldiers, Holder and Mayorkas and Garland and all those guys, Anthony Blinken. They're just foot soldiers. There's someone above, and I think it's Obama, because those are all Obama holdovers.
Right.
So I don't know.
It's a very good question. Look, I know if the big guy, as they call him, doesn't show up till 10 or 11 o'clock, and he's done by 3 or 4, and that's what they say. That's not my opinion. That's what the White House says. And if that's the case, then he's really not on the job. And what happens when, it's not an if or a might or a maybe, when that phone call happens at 3 o'clock in the morning and they have to wake the president, what are they supposed to do then? That means there's a lot of time that old Joe, the big guy, isn't around. So who's making the decisions?
Exactly. I'm starting to get a lot of calls locally, too, and emails about who to vote for in our local elections.
Right.
So I started thinking about it a little bit, and I'd like to see either Rose Saban or Casey Coates take the BOCC's extra seat that's open. I'll keep Dave North because he's doing a pretty good job, even though I'm kind of upset with the idea that shooting range is going to be on the public dole forever. It kind of bums me out that those guys supported that real good, but anyway, so that's where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to start on my Facebook page. I posted today a couple of the people I'd like to see take seats in Natrona County. But I can't wait for your deal. I am just so excited, and I'm glad I feel better. God, my stomach was just so upset.
Oh, good, yeah.
I thought I was having a heart attack or something.
Oh, no, you can't do that to us. No, we need you around for a while longer. And if we could, here's the thing, and I know you might know some people there, but the opposition group, the preservation group, still having a hard time getting them wanting to show up. And all they have to do is just present why they're opposed to it in a way that a audience there would understand. That's it. This is not a court.
What about that Carol that came on the show? She did a pretty good job. Even Casey Coates, who's running for county commissioner.
He could do it, yeah.
Okay. It's going to affect his land the most.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to get these people, just somebody to show up to represent the other side who'll do it in a good way. That's it. If you're able to put anything out there, because you know people too, I would hate to have just one side of the argument.
Well, and this is the thing that after Rancote, I'm glad you're moderating it, because otherwise it just turns into a big old lip service program like they do to us at the county commissioner's office.
Right.
We hear you. Yeah, we agree with you. And then they turn around and break it off in their butt.
Okay.
So anyway, that's my idea too, is get Casey Coates or that Carol. There's a Julie over there too that's pretty in tune. I hope you guys are listening this morning. In fact, I'll post it on Facebook to call Glenn Woods. People don't even know who you are.
Since when? Okay, that happens.
I don't know. Julie Fisher, one of the gals, said, "Who is Glenn Woods?" And I'm like, "Do you listen to K2 in the mornings, 6 to 10, Monday through Friday?"
Yeah.
It's called Wake Up Wyoming.
Yeah. Some people are just not talk radio listeners. That's why.
Yeah, well, and Facebook's had me in jail for, 52 days. I just got out this morning.
Again?
So,
What'd you do this? Oh, wait, hold on. Everybody wants to know now. What'd you do this time?
Okay, I posted a meme of Joe Biden being wheeled off the edge of a cliff in a wheelchair. That's how sensitive these people are.
Okay.
Remember when we could have Polish jokes, we could have black jokes, and we could have Italian jokes? You can't joke about anything anymore. These people are insane.
Okay. Remember when they had Paul Ryan shoving an old lady in a wheelchair off of a cliff because he was trying to balance the budget?
Yeah, that's the reason I posted it, because that's what it reminded me of.
Okay. All right, Jude. All right. Thanks for calling this morning. I hope you're feeling better soon.
Yep, I'll see you then.
Okay. See, I knew I had to get that out of her. If she is, if she was in Facebook jail for a while, you just needed to know why, right?
Some people are like slinkies. They have no real purpose, but it makes you smile when you push them down a flight of stairs.
This program is intended for immature audiences only. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Wake Up Wyoming. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Thanks to you to call in. You can call in too. So this is a completely different topic, but okay. At first I looked at this and thought, I'm going to pass this up. I'm not going to bother. And then after I swiped it away, I went back and went, no, actually, there's something to this. Now, I'm not big on polls, but sometimes the question is interesting. We just went through the 4th of July week, and I hope you had a really great time running your machines. I talked about this on, I think, Friday after, the 5th of July. I really appreciated that Americans in record number were traveling, took airplanes, rode cars, rode side-by-sides and four-wheelers, and took their boats out and took their airplanes out and cooked on natural gas and coal. Thank you for that. Get out there and be Americans, for God's sakes. So then the question is, burgers or chicken? Poll reveals which meat rules American grills. Now, I don't really care about the poll, but okay, just for the heck of it, let me see here. Because I came up with something better off of that headline. Survey of 2,000 men and women revealed that 53% of women are not receiving praise for grilling skills. I don't care about that. I want to know, men dominate grilling activity. Most men are the ones on the grill. Regardless of who's behind the grill, 74% believe it's an art form. I can agree with that. Okay. Survey also took a look at generally how grilling influences Americans' cooking habits. Found that 84% say nothing's better than a grilled dinner on a hot summer day, which, again, I can agree with that. Favorite foods to eat, let me see. Grilled foods, some of the favorites say 63%. Grilling outside is the best way to do it. Cool. You're still not answering the question, though. Okay, food, 72% hot dogs, 60% steak. Top three, 59%. Okay, so in other words, and then, of course, there's ribs, 46%. Fish, about 27%. Although I do like grilled fish, but that's for the 4th of July, about 27% will do fish. And there are some people who do chicken, too, but chicken was way down on the list. So, in other words, you're putting hot dogs, you're putting ribs on the grill, you're putting beef on the grill, hamburgers, stuff like that. Good. Way to go. Red meat. But I noticed as I read all of this, nowhere did I find tofu. Where was tofu on the grill? See, you vegans out there, because I put up a story on, I think it was the day before 4th of July, that vegans were suggesting what you should grill for 4th of July. Now, I will give this to vegans. There's some really good salads that they make, and even some really good things on the grill that look and taste good. You don't have to have the word vegan with it because it's just good stuff. Dips for your chips that are really good. Vegans do have some good recipes, but don't tell me that I'm eating that stuff to save the planet. Just make it good. But when they tried to do something like grilled tofu, which is actually a thing, tofu on a stick, no, absolutely not. So as I'm reading this story here, and I'm thinking, no, I'm going to skip this. You know, which do Americans prefer, burgers or chicken? And what's not on the list is tofu. They even offer, the vegans offer the idea of barbecue grilling a carrot on a stick. Yeah, and serving that for your 4th of July. You're going to barbecue grill a carrot on a stick. Now, I'm not going to say that's not going to taste good. If they do it right, it probably tastes phenomenal. But I would have that as a side dish, some barbecued carrot, which, by the way, I preferred it to be barbecued on coal, by the way. And then I started to wonder, what do the vegans think about that? Because they're trying to save the planet with all of this. And so they want you to get out there and barbecue. Well, hold on, vegans. So you don't want us to do anything, not just with meat, but any animal products, but you still want us to barbecue. But barbecue involves coal or natural gas. And I thought you guys were all into saving the planet, and coal and natural gas was a bad thing. So what do you do with that? Don't tell me that you're turning on your electric burner, which is powered by solar panels or wind turbines, and then tell me that you're grilling. Because you're not. Oh, by the way, I got to correct something. There's a difference between barbecue and grilling. Just because you put it on the grill doesn't make it a barbecue. Okay? A hot dog thrown on the grill tastes fantastic, but that's not what barbecue is. That's a different thing. All right, so if you want to grill up some burgers, great. You want to grill up some fish or chicken, whatever, that's all great too. For you vegans out there, it can't be anything that has anything to do with animals. Got it. But you still want to throw it on a grill, right? Well, but again, CO2 bad, I thought. So if you're going to roll out into the backyard some battery-operated grill and then throw some tofu and some carrots on there and tell me you're barbecuing, the hell you are. And by the way, when Americans are surveyed here, what rules the barbecue grill? Well, number one on the list is just good old hamburgers. Number two on the list is hot dogs, which, of course, vegans look at hot dogs and go, oh, my God, you realize what you're doing to yourself? Now, I guarantee you, for those people who really know what they're doing, there's going to be some bacon involved in that, too, okay? Yes, people threw some steaks on for the 4th of July. That happened. But most commonly, and there was some fish and was some chicken that was thrown on the grill on the 4th of July. But most commonly, it was hamburgers and hot dogs all over America. That's what people tend to like to do. There are those people who really do know how to make good ribs, and they did that, and those are the real cooks who know how to make good ribs and stuff like that. And they will be out there like all day making stuff like that, so you really should appreciate it. I know. I read the story thinking this was a throwaway story. I wasn't going to do it until I realized nothing on the list had anything to do with vegan anything. Here's Bert and Cheyenne. Maybe the vegans grill with magnifying glasses. Yeah, but that is that grilling though. Again, I understand what you're saying, Bert, and that's funny. But do you really think that they're going to push out into the backyard what they call a grill? But it's not. It's basically a wind or solar-powered or battery-operated just piece of metal that they're going to throw on something that's not meat-oriented, and they're going to cook that up and call it grilling or barbecuing. Well, okay, you'll be happy to know, everybody, that's not what Americans did. Americans got out on their motorcycles and their four-wheelers and their side-by-sides, and Americans drove their trucks, and they drove their campers, and they pulled their fifth wheels, and they got their motorboats out. And pilot friends of mine went flying, and everybody went to places using all of that CO2 where they fired up barbecue grills, and they threw meat on those grills. And that's what happened on this 4th of July. And Americans got really upset when they found out that the cost of a lot of that meat and the cost of the gasoline as well, and even the natural gas, was higher than it's been in a long time. And they just wanted to enjoy their damn 4th of July. So, okay, so far, as much as they argue and yell and scream, it sounds to me like these people are losing the arguments, the vegans and the cult of climate change. Because it certainly didn't play out this 4th of July with Americans, all over the country, doing whatever they wanted to do that Americans naturally do. I didn't see people holding back this year, did you? No, of course not. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
Dry.
Like a strong cup of coffee in the morning. Tasteless, but it'll get you through the day. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
8:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. By the way, Mark, I did see your note here. Mark is in Casper. Speaking of Joe Biden real quick, he says Bill O'Reilly has a list of people in Joe's cabinet, including Barry and Jill. Well, the question is who's actually running the country right now? Because Joe Biden's obviously not capable of doing a lot of the work because he's out of it most of the time. According to the White House itself, he's pulling very short days and taking lots of naps. So it tells you about who's really running the country, and it's definitely not Biden. He's not in any shape to do that. Okay, so here's a weird question for you. Just a thought. Would you like to live in a mall? Yeah, like a shopping mall. There was a time when shopping malls in America were a big thing. They were popping up all over the place. Now, where I was living in Florida, there was one mall that was built, and it didn't last long just because there were too many malls in the town. And they decided to take the mall and turn it into a, I guess, more like an office park because it was beautiful inside. The outside did not look like some bunker that you would climb into during an air raid. It was a very attractive outside. And then you go inside, and it was really nice in there, and it had fountains and, a food court and all that. And so they turned it into, you can go in there and find law offices and accountants and what other places needed offices, right? That was many years ago, and that was a pretty good idea to save the mall because no one wanted to go shopping there. There were too many other shopping malls around. Then malls started to die. Now, here in Wyoming, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm only aware of 2 indoor malls, Casper and Cheyenne. And even then, those don't have a whole lot in them anymore. Many malls around the country have just died out. It was a fad for a while, and I always enjoyed it, especially being in Florida in the summertime. Here was a place to go that was air-conditioned when it got really hot and humid in the summer. So what do you do with those buildings? In some places, the buildings are just torn down. I remember one in North Carolina. It was a nice mall in a nice town, and they just demolished it. The mall died, and they just demolished it. and they did something else with the land. So, okay, you could do that. Now, this is not just a mall. I'll read this a little bit about the mall, but then I'll point out something else that's happening. So, San Diego County voted Monday to allow a large retail center to be used as a residential development, a change that paves the way for more apartments to be built inside of shopping malls. So imagine whatever that looks like, I'm not sure, but you have an apartment, and when you step out your front door, basically you're walking through what used to be a mall, which I guess would be climate control year-round. Huh? New policy allows the primary use of retail for more than 500 square feet of residential area. The company that owns the mall already announced a goal to build some 800 apartments to replace the JCPenney, for example. Now, in some cases where they're doing this doesn't necessarily mean that the entire mall would be residential. In some cases, some of the part, like for example at the mall in Casper, Wyoming, am I right, folks? The Sears has been gone for quite a while. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember which ones. There's a couple of big retail chains that are just gone. That's a lot of square footage. So imagine just taking that and turning it into apartments, however that would look. And then people in those apartments are directly connected to the mall for when it opens. They can just go right to it right there. So it may not necessarily be the entire mall. It may just be part of it, those big because it used to have what they called anchor stores. Sears and JCPenney, for example, were two major anchor stores that all the other smaller stores, well, you would go to a mall to go to Sears and JCPenney, and all the other stores were in between them. So you would pass by them while going between the two big blockbuster stores. That's an interesting idea. Now, another idea that popped up was a lot of major cities had skyscrapers back when skyscrapers were needed because we had all sorts of people who needed to do office work. And it's a good idea. This is before the internet. So it's a good idea to have everybody in the same place. And so they would build these big skyscrapers, and people would go into town and go to work at the skyscraper. But now, because of today's online, everything's done by computer, you don't have to go into the office to work. And so a lot of these skyscrapers are being left empty. And so some of the building owners, not being able to find tenants, have decided to turn them into either apartments or condos. Now, to me, the irony is, so here's somebody who has to go to work every day at this skyscraper, and he wishes he could work from home. So they turned the skyscraper into apartments. He rents one of the apartments. Now he's working from home in the same place where his office used to be. That, to me, is just irony. But anyway, that's another thing that's happening. Now I can go to some other places, like let's go back to, again, I can take some of Wyoming's bigger towns. I've been focusing on Casper and Cheyenne. I know in Cheyenne, the Hersler building. You people over in Laramie, I know you've had a problem with some space in downtown. Even some of Wyoming's smaller towns, you've got some bigger buildings down there, which used to be filled with people working, but they've just been sitting idle for quite a while. And more companies are coming in and saying, hey, what if instead we turn that into apartments? In fact, speaking of Cheyenne, I still don't know what they do with the Hersler building, but in Cheyenne, there was a place that was a hotel in downtown Cheyenne. And you folks in Cheyenne, you know Lynn buys houses. Okay, so her company bought that building. And as far as I know, I haven't been in it yet, but she made them into, I think, efficiency apartments. Yeah, just small little affordable apartments right there in the downtown area. But there's still a lot of other buildings that are just vacant. And again, I know when I go to Laramie and some other Wyoming towns, I look at some older buildings that were pretty sizable and at one point packed with people doing all sorts of business, but nobody does that anymore. Well, very few people do. And so the idea is, well, what if we just go ahead and turn them into a place to live rather than tear down the whole building? So to me, it just caught me as an unusual solution to a problem. Let's go to some of our major cities, even places that aren't major cities, some places in Wyoming, There's a different idea. And imagine for those two towns in Wyoming that have malls, Cheyenne and Casper, imagine if some of the bigger retail spaces like your Sears, for example, if it's left empty, turning that into apartments, or going to some of your downtown buildings, which are bigger, older buildings, which even some old bank buildings, because there's some places in downtown which are big, old, there's a bank at the bottom, but the top of the building used to be law offices and all sorts of other accountant offices, all sorts of other things. What if instead those were turned into apartment buildings? Well, if the rent was reasonable and the apartments were nice looking inside, so think about where you're living, especially if you're in a more of a smaller Wyoming town. If you're in town, how many buildings are you looking at that are just vacant? Is that a better solution? Okay, that just kind of struck me as not a bad idea. Or you could tear the place down. Pick one. Now, just take a moment to do something different. I found a young lady who has some scary thoughts for you.
The brain named itself, and as a kid you're watching your parents grow up too. Cheese is just a loaf of milk. You've never been in an empty room. How do you throw away a garbage can? Brushing your teeth is the only time you clean your skeleton. Your whole life you're just gathering people for your funeral. You don't own money, it's just your turn with it. The last kid to leave the bus knows where everybody lives. He knows where everybody lives, but no one knows where he lives. That is kind of creepy. Don't think about it when you're sleeping.
Well, that image is going to stick with you all. This show contains sarcasm that some listeners may find disturbing. A sense of humor is advised. Chat with Glenn live on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
8:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to Laramie to talk to David Settle. Okay, Dave, you're going to tell me I'm overreacting. You might even call me crazy. All right, let's just get that out of the way.
Okay, what are we talking about?
So I have a very tiny front lawn, not much. In fact, I was able to get dirt cheap a plug-in lawnmower because it's not that much of a patch.
Okay.
Now, because it's not that much, I have a neighbor off to the side of me who his patch of grass attaches to mine. So if I get out there to mow, I just do his patch too, right?
That's very
now
nice.
And then, if he gets out there in front of me, sometimes he beats me, he cuts my side too, just to return the favor, right?
Okay.
Yeah. But the guy's a psychopath, okay? Because when he cuts the lawn, he does it at these odd angles. So the strips going back and forth are not... See, I do it like north to south angles, like left and right.
Okay.
He does these diagonals.
Yeah.
And he might go diagonal one way one week, but the next week it's diagonal facing the other way.
Ooh, that's a good job by him.
Yeah, is he being artsy or something?
Well, yeah. So I was taught long time ago, and you know, lawn aficionados can correct me. I was taught you always mix up your patterns.
Oh.
So you could go like north to south, and then east to west, and then diagonal one way and diagonal the other way, and you just kind of mix it up, and that way the blades of grass don't always lay in one direction because you're mowing it the exact same way all the time.
Do the blades of grass even know this?
I have no clue.
And none whatsoever. But you bought into it.
I did. I bought into it a long time ago.
Okay. All right. No, I just called the guy a psychopath and said you really shouldn't do that.
Apparently, I'm a psychopath the way
Yes.
I mow my lawn. Then I guess
it messes up my feng shui, is what I'm saying here. I have this all perfectly laid out every single week, or maybe I'm just getting too anal in my old age. I don't know.
All right, thank you very much, Glenn. Let's talk some sports this hour. Team USA held Team Canada scoreless in the fourth quarter, and the U.S. won Can-Am Bowl 65-44 Saturday in Meeteetse, Wyoming. It was the first time the game had ever been played in Wyoming, and was just the second time it was played in the United States. This marked the 12th win in the last 13 for Team USA. Wyatt Tremblay from DuBois had a great game. He had a couple touchdown runs and actually threw 2 touchdown passes, and he's not known for throwing the ball. Gage Minkin of Hay Springs, Nebraska, added 3 touchdown runs as Team USA pulled away in the final 10 minutes. They were down 10 points twice in the game, including 44-34 in the third quarter. And then they held them scoreless the rest of the way, scoring the final 31 points. USA ends up now leading the all-time series 21-5. We'll have some photos, videos, and more of a recap in the coming days at yopreps.com. In American Legion baseball from this past weekend, well, plenty of tournament action going on, and the Lovell Mustangs won the Bull and Woodbat tournament on Sunday in Douglas as they ended up beating Torrington in the championship 7-3. The Sheridan Jets won the Hargens-Lacey tournament in Gillette with a 2-1 victory over the Gillette Rustlers. They went 5-0 on the weekend. In Cheyenne at the Mount West World Series tournament, the Cheyenne Sixers beat the Cheyenne Hawks 8-1 in the semifinals. Then they beat Powell 4-0 behind a Braden Pearson 5-hit shutout with 9 strikeouts to win the championship. At that same tournament, Laramie Rangers AA squad went 2-3 on the weekend, and that included winning Sunday's matchup game against the Parker Lightning 6-3 as Laramie scored 4 times in the bottom of the 6th inning to win it. In some other action on Sunday in American Legion baseball, the Casper Oilers lost a pair of games in Kaysville, Utah to the Utah Yaks 19U squad 4-1 and 8-5. Casper Drillers at home hosted the Laramie Rangers A team for a pair of conference games. Drillers won the opener 3-2 and won the second game 12-2. And also, he ended up with some other Legion baseball around the state as well as around the region. You can check all the scores at yopreps.com and on the YOPreps app. In Big League Baseball, the Rockies ended up winning 2 of 3 over the weekend against the Kansas City Royals. They won Friday night 4-2 and Saturday night 3-1. They lost the game Sunday afternoon 10-1. So the Rockies right now sit at 32-58 on the season, still last place in the National League West. They start a road trip, 7-game road trip before the All-Star break tonight in Cincinnati against the Reds. First pitch is set for 5:10 Mountain Time, and that is your sports this hour.
So, wow, Sharon from Lovell, when I mowed the yard, my great aunt, she instructed me to change directions of mowing for the exact reason you just discussed, David. She said, you must never have mowed your Aunt Edna's lawn. No, I never did.
So sorry for you, Glenn.
Yeah, it's always been the same back and forth pattern. I don't know what kind of psychopaths mix it up. It's just messing with me, David. This is.
I guess we are all messing with you then.
I guess so. Yeah, especially across the street at the golf course. I don't know what the hell they're doing. All right. Thank you, Dave. Coming up on some local business. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. 9:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS.
Today's show is sponsored by Squid-Flavored Donuts, bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
I know you'll love to kiss someone after they've had squid-flavored donuts. Okay, still watching. They've been running it all morning long on the ridiculously large television that they have next to me here in my studio. It's a lot to do with, of course, the hurricane that's hitting Texas right now. And I'll just repeat what I said earlier this morning. It's hurricane season. Okay. Hurricanes have been happening for billions of years. There's nothing new about hurricanes. It's hurricane season, so we're going to have them. Okay. It's going to happen. And every once in a while, a hurricane hits a coastline somewhere where there are people. That happens. This is a Category 1. It did hit a 5 for a little while, but 5s don't last very long, and then it went down to a tropical storm, then was able to get back up to a 1 again, and then hits the Texas coast. Going through, is she doing damage to Houston? Most of the flooding in Houston, honestly, is caused because when they built Houston, like a lot of other cities around America, they built it to handle just heavy rain. But when it gets to really bad floodwaters, it actually backs up, and then they have a flooding problem. And that's not the fault of the hurricanes as much as it is the human beings. In fact, bringing it back to Wyoming, folks help me, what was it, in the 80s? You folks in Cheyenne, I think it was in the 80s. A big rainstorm came through and flooded Cheyenne. People died. Today, when you go to Cheyenne, you can go through an area that's beautiful parks. There's all around Cheyenne are beautiful parks. And they have hiking trails and grass, all this kind of stuff. What they really are is a drainage area that was developed. So someday, Cheyenne's going to get hit by a storm like that again. It's not a might or a maybe. It's going to happen. When it does, that's just going to, well, most of it will be handled by the system that was built. The reason it made it into parks is might as well make it good looking. Might as well make it useful for people in the meantime. And that's what Houston and other cities have been working on. As soon as they realized they made a mistake by putting too much concrete in. But the storm now that's hitting the Texas coastal area, it is hurricane season, and this is a hurricane. We are not having more than ever before, okay? They're not bigger and more destructive than ever before. That's not the case. It's just hurricane season. And welcome to it. On that note.
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. And while we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
So, this is somebody else trying to meddle in your affairs and keep an eye on you. A NatWest is what they're called. It's over in the UK. British farmers are really upset because the bank is using customer information to sort of track them, and they're urging customers to buy less meat and replace dairy products with plant-based alternatives. I'll get back to that in just a minute. Replace your dairy products with plant-based alternatives. A carbon foot calculator, or carbon footprint tracker, if you will, on the bank's mobile app uses transactions, the data when you buy something, right, to advise customers on how to reduce their carbon footprint and their spending habits. Okay, here's something that got me a little while ago. I was somewhere in Wyoming. There was an event going on. And as part of the event, a local auto dealership had put a truck up, pickup truck. And it was a good-looking little truck. And I walked over to take a look at it, and I'm reading the sticker. And I noticed on the sticker, there's a carbon footprint on the... how much of an impact does this have in the environment? Scale of 1 to 10. I was pleased to report the pickup truck was a 10, as in bad, really bad, for the environment, which means I'm more apt to buy it. But they tried doing so. It's a lot like when you go someplace to have lunch and you're in a fast food joint and they have up there on the menu the calorie count. Do you pay attention to that? All right. Most people don't even know that there is on the sticker when they buy an automobile a calculator there for your impact on the environment. Those people who don't know, most of them don't care. Very few people actually look for that and care. It's a tiny percentage. Here, though, imagine every time you go to buy something, your bank puts a little warning label up about you're buying that, you know, your carbon footprint for that. Imagine if you had an app that was doing that every time you went to purchase something. The app recommends Veggie Mondays and choosing mostly plant-based diets to customers as a way to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Well, excuse me, but vegetarians and vegans outgas a lot more than you meat eaters. So who's really contributing more to climate change? It also suggests buying more secondhand clothes and taking fewer flights. So if you go to buy a plane ticket somewhere, you sure you've already taken a plane flight this year because your carbon footprint. And as thousands of users who can opt to receive a monthly carbon score. But the National Farmers Union over there in the UK has criticized NatWest, the bank, for promoting an oversimplified message that misses a nuanced path to a sustainable food system. If I were them, if I were the farmers, I would tell them just knock it off, or we're not going to be doing business with you anymore. That's a better way to do it. So swap out beef. This is the kind of message you would be getting. Let's say you're buying groceries, right? And you buy groceries and you use your debit card or credit card, whatever, from the bank. And you get a message off of your app. Try to cut out red meat as often as possible to make a sizable reduction in carbon emissions over time. You ever been around a vegetarian or a vegan? You want to talk about outgassing? NatWest Banking app recommends swapping beef to reduce carbon footprint. Oh, okay, here's another one. So you buy something like a plant, you buy some milk to bring home, right? And you get a message on your app, swap to plant-based milk. There are now many delicious non-dairy milk alternatives for sale in supermarkets online. Reduce your footprint by up to 6 grams. Yeah. And then you can click on it to do more. Here's one more for you. You go ahead and buy some meat, and you get this message on your phone. Eat vegetarian at home. It estimates that by 2025, 25% of the people in the UK will be vegetarians. I seriously doubt that. And almost 50% will be flexitarians. I don't even know. I'll have to look that up. I don't know what that is. Oh, God. Okay, so that's just some of the things that they're doing on the app in order to, like I said, I had something to go with this. Hang on a second. Let me go over to my little, in my files. Let me see. I'll go down to the food file here. And then there's the Venezuelan diet, the Wiggleberg. Oh, yeah. There's this.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Plaza. You know me as an actress, but I'm also the co-founder of Wood Milk, the world's first and only milk made from wood. Wood Milk started with a simple idea. I saw a tree and I asked myself, can I drink this? As it turns out, the answer is yes, if you make it into milk. Here at Wood Milk Orchards, we grow our trees the old-fashioned way, right out of the ground. And we're certain our eco-friendly, artisanal, free-range wood milk will be the only milk you'll want to drink for the rest of your life. Why? Because you're thirsty and because you want it. Our wood milk is bottled right here in the forest, which locks in the flavors like oak, cherry, maple, and of course mahogany. And if you can't pick your favorite, that's okay, because they all taste like wood. Now let's take a look at how wood milk is born. Not born, exactly. More like squished into a slime that's legal to sell. If a tree falls in the forest, can you make milk out of it? Now it's time to enjoy the fruits of our efforts. Not fruits, wood. Is wood milk real? Absolutely not. Only real milk is real. Then what did I invest in?
Hey there, boys and girls, or whoever else you identify as. Welcome to Woke Radio, W-O-K-E.
Woke Radio, W-O-K-E.
Here are some hot tracks for your commute across the basement to the office. Just don't tell Mom. She's upstairs and she thinks you're looking for a job.
Got something to say? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat with Glenn on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app from K2 Radio.
9:22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So, okay, if you're just joining me, I was talking about a bank in the UK that's really annoying customers. And I don't like what the Farmers Union did. They said, well, you shouldn't do that because, and they tried to appease the bank by offering an alternative. Because every time you buy something with this bank's debit card or credit card or using the app, it gives you some advice on your carbon footprint. And some farmers and ranchers out there don't want that because they're serving meat products, but they still buy into the whole nonsense that we need to reduce our carbon footprint. I would just tell them, stop it or we're leaving, which I've done with banks before. Years ago, there was a bank that tried charging fees for every little thing, including depositing money. I would be charged a fee if I deposited money in my... So I just took all my money out, and I, on the way out, stopped in the bank manager's office and said, here's why I'm leaving. And I'm going to your competition across the street. I must not have been the only one, because the bank quit that practice within a few weeks. People got really annoyed. I don't know what made them think they could do that. All right, so here's the story. This is over in the UK. The bank's app asked its users to try adding tofu and lentils to their diets as substitute for eating meat. So you go out, you buy some meat to bring home, and this is what appears on the app. You should buy tofu and lentils to save the planet. It also suggests they switch off tumble dryers, share cars for journeys, and wash clothes in cold water. So in other words, if you went to buy some gasoline for your car, you should share rides on journeys instead of buying so much gasoline. That appears on your app while you're buying gas. David Burton, chair of the NFU Livestock Board, says, we've been working closely with the bank about messaging on its carbon tracker. Some changes have been made. I would not work with them. We have to adjust your messaging. I would just tell them, stop it. All right, quote, what we eat is a personal choice and should be made in an informed way. We are continuing our conversation with the bank about the nutritional and biodiversity benefits of eating meat, what it provides, as currently the app tracker only focuses primarily on greenhouse gas emissions. He added, we understand that the app for the bank is primarily focused on greenhouse gas emissions, but the reality that when making diet-related recommendations, other factors such as nutrition, environment, and biodiversity, here's a better idea. Then they talk about why swapping beef out is not necessarily good. How about this? Get off my phone. I just wanted to buy some food to bring home. It's none of your business what I buy. All right. Following months of back and forth, the bank agreed to change wording about the app, but the ranchers believe the change isn't significant enough. Quote, customers are no longer being advised to swap out beef and to swap to plant-based milk, while recommendations to buy local British producers added. They say British meat and dairy industry are among the most sustainable in the world. Now, again, this is where I think the farmers and ranchers are buying into this whole idea. We have to be sustainable. Stop it. Don't try to appease these people. It's simply not going to work. And about switching milk to alternative milks.
Milking a 600 kilogram Holstein, now that's easy. Milking a 1 gram almond, that's hard. Tiny little udders, tiny. Picture of my grandfather in World War II. When he got back from the war, he started this here nut milkery, and I'm third generation nut milker now, and I love what I do. There's so much confusion in city folk these days. They're talking about nuts don't lactate, nuts don't have nipples. I'll show you a nut nipple. So this is a tandem nut milker. It milks 2 nuts at a time. It's comfortable for them. They want to be milked. You'll never see a happier nut than a freshly milked nut. And, you can hear them a little bit if you listen. You hear that chirping? That's a happy nut. Back in the old days, we used to train gerbils to milk the nuts, but they would eat some of our herd, and it wasn't ideal. So these dual nut milkers have really changed the game. I'd say, I know exactly how many we got. We got 564 of these running 24/7. It's quite the operation. So it takes about 200 almonds to get a half gallon of almond milk. All our almonds are fully organic, grass-fed. Oh, this will last them a good month, I'd say. All these ones you see here, these are females. Now, the ones you see in the store, those are all males. They have no udder at all. And most people go their whole lives and see nothing but a male almond because, well, we don't let the females off the farm. It's a hard job, but I'm living the dream, and nothing makes me happier than knowing that my hard work went into making this nut milk happen. I wouldn't do anything else.
I got a question for you guys on this. So a while back, I was telling you that I would go to the grocery store, curious about a lot of these alternative meat things, the Impossible Burger, stuff like that. And I would go to the section of the grocery store in the freezer section that had this stuff and had shrunk down to a small area in the freezer section. Now, recently, in one of the grocery stores I went to check it out because suddenly advertising for this fake alternative meat had gone through the roof. I've seen more advertising than ever before. And so I go to the grocery store, and that freezer section has enlarged quite a bit. It's nowhere near dominated, but it has enlarged quite a bit. And I'm thinking, is it because people are eating more than ever before? Or is the industry trying to really do a last-ditch effort before they go bankrupt? I think it's the latter, because very few people are actually eating this stuff. All right, we're coming up on some local business we have to take care of. I see Casey is on the phone. Casey, you're going to have to wait because I have a news and information break coming my way. Local news update. I see he was warned about time. That's good. And update on your weather forecast. Then I'll get to Casey right after news and information. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Local and mobile across Wyoming and beyond with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Casey's been patiently waiting through a news and information break. Thanks for hanging in there, Casey. What you got for me?
I just want to make a quick comment on your talk about ranching and sustainability.
Yeah.
So, ranching and farming is one of the most sustainable business practices that's happened, almost since the, dawn of the industrial world and before that. And, the migration towards sustainable practices with farmers and ranchers is really driven by market share and, appeasing the collective consciousness of uninformed individuals.
Yeah. I don't like when I look at what they call sustainable practices, and there's some I've reported on this program that actually are harmful to farmers and ranches, and yet they call it sustainable. And I think it's anything but. And that's become a buzzword for a lot of things that often do more harming than good. But if you want to talk about sustainable in the truest sense of the word, you're right. In fact, when you take a look at what hunters do, hunters want to make sure that there's more wildlife out there and they're not out there wiping everything out. That is truly sustainable when you think about it in that sense, not the buzzword sense.
Absolutely. It's like ranching. My family's operated a cattle ranch here in Natrona County for, over a century. And it's, range management and, our cattle management, rotating pastures, and just really being stewards of the land that's important.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Casey. I appreciate you. Appreciate it and hanging on through the call, too. By the way, I was out, and I really have to thank my friends for letting me do this. So on Sunday, I went out to a few cattle ranches, more than one. Now, being an island boy and not a rancher boy, I know what I've heard about cattle drives and branding time and inoculations, all that kind of stuff, but I've never seen it. And so I was invited to go see it. Brought a friend of mine who was a photographer. We have a gallery of pictures coming because it was really some exciting stuff going on. Just an amazing day. But a lot of the vast majority of the criticism you hear from people about farming and ranching, they've never gone out there to see it. There was a time, they really don't know what goes on, and yet they're critical of it. There was a time when, we didn't know any better, and we would farm and ranch. I mean, take a look at the Dust Bowl era. A lot of that was caused by human beings and mistakes that were made in farming. But we've learned a lot over the years. And when you take a look at how we do it now, we create more food than ever before. There is an abundance of food, considering how big the human population is, and we have way more food than we need. And we're getting better at this all the time. And it's not because we're worried about, we've got to save the planet with a lower carbon footprint. That's not what's going on. It's the science that goes into farming and ranching. And people like who we just heard from in Natrona County, people who for generations have been out there on their farms and ranches, and they know that they need to work the land properly so they have a business next year and the year after that and the year after that. They're not out there trying to destroy the land. They're not out there trying to destroy the planet. They're actually out there trying to make a living and knowing that if they want to continue to make a living and pass it on to their future generations, they got to take care of the land. That's why I brought up during the call with Casey there is hunters are the vast majority of hunters that I meet care about the land to a great extent, because they want to be able to go out and hunt again next year, which means that the land has to remain clean and pristine, and the herds have to populate. And so they don't want to go out there and trash the place. They don't want to wipe herds out of existence by hunting them out of existence. They want to take care of the place. And there was a time when it came to drilling and digging for energy in places like Wyoming that we didn't really know any better. And so, that's why you have a bunch of orphan wells and orphan mines and so on, because people didn't know better. But as we learned, even drilling and digging for energy, coal, gas, and oil, the way they do it these days is far cleaner and better for the environment than what we used to do. And yet these folks don't get credit for it. If you want to see who's destroying the environment, go to China. Go to many Asian countries, go to Russia. Look at those countries and what they do to the environment. Go to some African nations who just destroy the environment to get the rare earth minerals so we can have wind and solar panels to save the planet. Is that really saving the planet? So what is truly sustainable, oftentimes that word is just thrown around as a buzzword, and they don't really mean it in the actual sense of what that word means. In many cases, people will throw out buzzwords because if you throw out the right words, well, then you're a good person. And sustainable is one of those buzzwords, which is why I like to tell people this radio show is sustainable and carbon neutral. No, imagine all of the CO2 because of the BS that I talk about every single day on this program. That's a huge carbon and methane footprint. It's trapped in this room. And as far as recycling goes, I tell a lot of the same stories over and over again, which means I'm just recycling news. So you see what I mean? This program is carbon neutral. It's carbon capture, for that matter, in the studio, which is why I get lightheaded now and then, and sustainable, and we recycle. So you see, you are a good person because you listen to this program.
Now, Glenn Woods fits in your pocket with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
Coming up on 9:48 is Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to David Settle, who's in Laramie. So I assume, Dave, of course, you have a cell phone.
I do.
Okay. And what is the least used application on your phone?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I right off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
Yeah, for me, it's the phone application.
Okay.
Yeah, because how often do you get a call?
Don't dial. Yeah, well, no, I get calls fairly regularly.
You
actually.
do? Okay. I actually, when someone does call, I have my phone set up so my phone will go ahead and say your name if you called me. So
right,
I know that this is someone I know, and if the phone doesn't give me that name, doesn't tell me so-and-so is calling, then I'm very suspicious and often don't pick the thing up.
Yeah, I can be that way as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm just noticing that in this day and age, people are using the phone less and less. In fact, even this program here, while I really do enjoy the people who call into the program on a daily basis, but the number of people who choose to use the Wake Up Wyoming app to text me when I'm on the air rather than call me has exploded because that's what people would rather do, right?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to contact someone today, whoever that person might be, are you more apt to call them first or send them a text first?
Depends upon the individual.
Okay.
And depends upon the type of situation at hand, especially in my job. Sometimes, a quick text is easier.
Yeah.
And I totally understand people that do that. But sometimes I just need a little bit more information, and sometimes it's just easier. And I kind of get the same thing. In the job that Frank and I have, and particularly me, when I'm talking with a lot of coaches around the state, sometimes it's just easier. And I had a coach do this to me regularly. I had sent somebody an email about some information. They're like, it's just easier for me to pick the phone up and tell you real quick instead of trying to explain it over email or text. And so I was like, that works out.
See, I'm with you there. There's times when I don't want to type all of that, so I'm just going to call you and tell you, which is a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But I do notice more and more people are going to alternate forms of communication and getting away from the old-fashioned phone call thing, which is why I wonder that device we have in our hand, why do we even call it a phone anymore?
There's truth to that. I'm still old school. I like that face to face and that interaction where I'm hearing somebody, but that's not quite the current generation, I guess.
I really noticed it a while back when I thought of something and I grabbed my phone and I called my sister, who was completely freaked out that I called her. and that's my sister. She and I send messages over an app all day long. All day we're talking to each other. The fact that I bothered to pick up the phone and dial her number and wanted to hear her voice, she wanted to know, honestly, Dave, what the hell was wrong? Was I okay?
Yeah, I bet. All right, thanks a lot, Glenn. Good morning, everybody. Our final sports update this morning. Here we go. University of Wyoming athletic teams, in partnership with Special Olympics Wyoming, will be hosting a Pokes Field Day on Saturday, July 13th in Laramie from 2 to 4 p.m. at the indoor practice facility on the University of Wyoming campus. Student athletes from across all sports will play various games with participants who have intellectual and development disabilities. There's no age restriction, and the event is open and free to anybody who might be interested in participating. Again, it's coming up this Saturday, July 13th, 2 to 4 p.m. at the indoor practice facility on the University of Wyoming campus. Registration is open, and you can check out the link online at gowyo.com. That's the Wyoming Athletics website. That's gowyo.com. Now, in terms of other things that are going on, Can-Am Bowl 26 was last Saturday in Meeteetse. Team USA prevailed. They rallied from a 10-point deficit in the third quarter and scored the last 31 points of the game to win 65-44 over Canada. Just the second time the game was played in the U.S., first time ever in Wyoming. It's the 12th win in the last 13 for Team USA as they lead the all-time series now 21-5. From Du Bois, Wyatt Tremblay had 2 touchdown runs and 2 touchdown passes in the game. And on his home field, Meeteetse's Joseph Pina ended up with making several key defensive plays in the second half to kind of key the USA surge past Canada to win the Can-Am Bowl. In American Legion Baseball over the weekend, several tournaments going on around the state. The Lovell Mustangs won the Bull and Woodbat tournament in Douglas. The Sheridan Jets went 5-0 and won the Hargans-Lacey tournament in Gillette. Down at the Mount West World Series tournament in Cheyenne, the Cheyenne Sixers won the championship, shutting out Powell 4-0. Braden Pearson threw a 5-hit shutout with 9 strikeouts. The Sixers have beaten the Cheyenne Hawks 8-1 in the semifinals. Also at that tournament, the Laramie Rangers AA squad went 2-3 as they won their match play game Sunday, scoring 4 times in the bottom of the 6th to beat the Parker Lightning from Colorado 6-3. The Casper Oilers were over in Kaysville, Utah, playing the Utah Yaks 19U squad. They lost both games on Sunday 4-1 and 8-5. Casper Drillers beat the Laramie Rangers A squad in a conference doubleheader in Casper Sunday 3-2 in Game 1, 12-2 in Game 2. And you can find all the scores from last week's Week 14 of American Legion Baseball and the current standings through 14 weeks at WyoPreps.com and on the WyoPreps app. And in Big League Baseball, the Rockies lost on Sunday to the Kansas City Royals 10-1. That snapped a 3-game win streak for the Rockies. They start a 7-game road trip before the Major League Baseball All-Star break. And the first of 4 in Cincinnati is today against the Reds at 5:10 Mountain Time. That is your sports this hour.
See, what happened was the Rockies won 3 in a row. Then they had a little sit-down discussion to figure out what they were doing wrong. And they had figured it out, which is why on Sunday they completely blew it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm just thinking that's got to be what's happening behind closed doors there, David.
Something like that, I guess.
Hey, thanks for filling in for Frank all this time.
No problem.
Yeah, it's Wake Up Wyoming.